The lecture hall of the Galactic Military Academy buzzed with chittering clicks and harmonious tones as students from 17 different species discussed the day's lesson. Professor Veltar, a distinguished Kethani with silver-tipped tentacles, called for attention. Today we examine the controversial human exclusion protocol, Veltar announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had witnessed 3 galactic conflicts. As you know, humans have been banned from participating in joint military operations for the past 50 standard years. A chorus of amused sounds rippled through the amphitheater. Zixka, a young Vorthon with crystalline scales that shimmered blue when she was entertained, raised her arm. "Professor, isn't it because they're too primitive? I heard they still use projectile weapons and chemical propulsion." More laughter echoed from the assembled students. The hegemony's youth had grown up hearing stories of the strange bipedal species from Sol 3, the ones who had somehow stumbled into faster-than-light travel, despite their backwards technology and violent tendencies. "Their emotional instability makes them unsuitable for coordinated operations," added Throcknall, a Gorvan whose forearms gestured dismissively. "The psychological profiles show they're prone to something called berserker rage. How can you trust warriors who lose control?" Professor Veltar's tentacles coiled thoughtfully. He had been expecting this reaction. Every year the same prejudices surfaced among his students. They saw humans as an anomaly, a species that had achieved spaceflight through brute force rather than the careful, calculated progression that marked every other civilization. "You seem confident in your assessments," Veltar said carefully. "Tell me, who here has actually seen humans in combat?" The hall fell silent. A few students exchanged glances, but none raised their appendages. "I thought not," Veltar continued. "The ban wasn't implemented because humans were ineffective. Quite the opposite. He manipulated the holographic display showing a star chart. Before we continue with theory, perhaps it's time you understood why the Galactic Council truly fears human involvement in warfare." The lights dimmed as Veltar accessed the classified archives. "What I'm about to show you is footage from the Battle of Kepler 442b, the engagement that led to the Human Exclusion Protocol. I warn you, this material is disturbing." The holo display flickered to life, showing a tactical overview of the Kepler system. Neat formation indicators showed the joint fleet, Kethani dreadnoughts, Vorthon strike cruisers, and Gorvan battle platforms arranged in the classical pincer formation that had dominated galactic warfare for millennia. "The Zektar hive had invaded the outer colonies," Veltar narrated. 17 worlds had fallen to their swarms. The combined fleet represented the largest military force ever assembled, over 4,000 vessels from 12 species. On the display, ominous red indicators swarmed toward the formation. The Zektar ships moved like a living organism, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with alien purpose. "Standard engagement protocols were followed," Veltar continued. "Long-range bombardment, followed by tactical withdrawal to predetermined fallback positions. The Zektar, however, had evolved. Their ships were adapting to our weapons in real time." The students watched in fascination as the neat blue formations began to fragment. The Zektar swarm engulfed the outer formations, converting destroyed ships into new hive constructs. "By hour 12, we had lost 60% of our forces," Veltar said grimly. The Admiral was preparing to sound the retreat when the human contingent requested permission to engage. A new cluster of indicators appeared on the display, small, seemingly insignificant compared to the massive capital ships. Only 47 vessels, frigate class by galactic standards. Zixka leaned forward. "That's it? Fewer than 50 ships?" "Commander Sarah Chen of the human vessel Indomitable had been monitoring the battle," Veltar explained. "What happened next violated every principle of modern warfare." The human ships accelerated, not toward the formation's rear where they might provide support, but directly into the heart of the Zektar swarm. "They're committing suicide," whispered Throcknall. But as the students watched, something extraordinary happened. The human ships didn't follow standard attack patterns. They moved like individuals rather than a formation, each vessel weaving between Zektar constructs with impossible precision. Instead of maintaining safe distances, they closed to point-blank range. "Humans," Veltar said softly, "don't fight like we do. They don't calculate optimal casualties or preserve their formations. When they fight to win regardless of the cost." The footage showed human ships ramming Zektar constructs, their crews choosing to detonate their reactors rather than be captured. But it wasn't mindless sacrifice. Each action was perfectly timed, perfectly placed to cause maximum disruption to the hive mind's coordination. Look at their targeting. Veltar highlighted specific attacks. While we focused on destroying individual ships, the humans identified and eliminated the command nodes. They recognized that the Zektar's strength was also their weakness: centralized control. Within an hour, the seemingly invincible swarm began to fragment. Without their coordination, individual Zektar constructs became easy targets for the reorganized galactic fleet. 47 ships, Veltar repeated. 47 ships turned the tide of a battle that 4,000 could not win. The hall was completely silent now. The casualty report, Veltar continued, showed that 38 human vessels were lost. Of the 9 that survived, 6 were so damaged they had to be scuttled. The humans lost 85% of their force. He paused, letting that sink in, and they considered it a victory. Zixka's scales had shifted to a pale, uncertain hue. But how could they function with such losses? Because humans don't fight for survival, Veltar explained. They fight for each other. Every human who died in that battle chose to die so that others might live. Not just other humans, all of us. The professor's tentacles gestured to encompass the entire room. The Galactic Council banned human participation not because they were ineffective, but because their effectiveness terrified us. A species that will sacrifice everything for victory, that turns warfare into an act of devotion rather than calculation. Such beings change the very nature of conflict. He deactivated the display, and the normal lighting returned. The human exclusion protocol wasn't created to protect the galaxy from human incompetence, Veltar concluded. It was created to protect the galaxy from human competence. Because once you've seen what 47 humans can accomplish when they refuse to accept defeat, you begin to understand why their species calls themselves Homo sapiens, wise man. In the silence that followed, not a single student dared to mock the human ban again.